So at Sandler's really built on a rule-based system, tactics and strategies that are executed outside in the marketplace. And today we're going to be talking about those tactics and strategies specifically.
Most sales training methodologies that organizations might use really focus on sort of the conversational intelligence, or the what, right? It's kind of like we have a discovery meeting, we have a follow-up meeting, we get technical people involved, and sort of there's this linear progression of the conversation. But what most people don't realize is that behavior drives everything. Right? Without behavior, there is no pipeline, right? There is no conversations that happen. And so, we really look at behavior, and people have to drive behavior, right? We always say your conviction in the conversation is proportional to the size of your pipeline, and without behavior, we don't have that. What does that tell us about how we need to navigate the sales interaction?
So the one that's asking questions is the one that's in control. And I think the hardest thing for business development reps is to actually listen and be able to ask really good open-ended questions. One that's really going to draw out what's really going on. Mm-hmm. Like maybe when we have a lot of deals going, right? We got some swagger.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right? When maybe the pipeline's a little thinner, we're a little close to the vest, we're white knuckling.
Oh, absolutely.
So how does that play inside of Sandler and what Sandler does?
Well, obviously, conviction is a lot, right? People don't want to buy a high ticket item from somebody who doesn't bring the juice, somebody who doesn't have the energy, somebody who's not convicted in what they do. But the reality is, we're not just out selling product. From an attitude standpoint, we have to have conviction that our company has the magic dust for the marketplace. And speaking of the marketplace, the market is full of abundance, and people want to have conversations with us. And so, when our conviction is high, typically those two areas go with it, and it helps drive stronger conversations. Now, we get to the technique piece. From behavior, attitude, and technique. The challenge with some people, because sometimes their attitude isn't quite there, they tend to lean into the technical side of the conversations. When we say technical side, right, it's how many, how much, what's the pressure, what's the feeds, what's the speeds, right, all of that technical jargon that rolls up, and people think they're selling. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, they miss the commercial conversation, which is where people actually make decisions about whether your product or service is relevant to them. Mm-hmm. Some people are really good at sales. Mm-hmm. I mean, innately, they've got this aura around them that makes it really easy. What have you found historically? Are people natural at selling? Or how does this work, right? Can somebody become more of a natural seller, and can somebody, do some things differently that might be uncomfortable?
Well, I think a lot of business owners, a lot of principals inside of organizations that have worn a business development hat at some point, they're a lot of times what we call unconscious competent. They're really good at what they do, but they don't necessarily know the steps and how they do it. And I think what Sandler does for those folks, once they see the process, once they see the tactics and strategies, a lot of them sit there and say, I do that all the time. And so we're just bringing context to what they're already doing. Yeah, agreed. Now, when we think, let's flip back to the attitude, right? Because to me, this is the toughest leg.
Oh, sure.
Right?
By
it's
far.
Stinking thinking, right? It's our ability to kind of get outside of ourselves. What are some of the barriers that you feel like, professional salespeople have in terms of stinking thinking, and maybe where it's maybe some head trash that's holding them back?
Well, that's a pretty broad question, a lot to unpack there, but I'll kind of throw it out in sort of a broad brush format. most people who have a fundamental belief that they are the best at what they do. And I think, there's nothing wrong with that. We all should have that. We all should have the fundamental belief that we're not perfect, and right, we're on this journey of continuous improvement. We're growth-minded folks. And so that's a pretty good thing to have. But here's where oftentimes the thinking, I think you said, right? Or right, negative self-talk, I might call it, comes to play is, we have people who have high self-esteem. They feel like they're a winner no matter what, which is awesome. There's nothing wrong with that thinking. But what sometimes happens is behavior drops. Now, let's just say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you're a salesperson and you've got the best behavior on the planet, 1 being you're not even getting out of bed, right? Right, on a scale of 1 to 10, not every week is the best week behaviorally. We can all attest to that, right? We're not always on our game. But let's just say our attitude on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is I'm never going to sell anything, and 10 is, I'm going to go out there and slay the world, right? We have a scale of 1 to 10. Most people like to think they're up on the 10. But here's what happens. Here's the biggest trap people get into. Their attitude is a 10. And for whatever reason, this week or this month, their behavior was a 5 or a 6. What do you think happens to their attitude at that point?
It probably goes down.
Yeah, it probably goes down. And ultimately what happens, right? This is my theory of the anatomy of stress in sales. When our behavior doesn't align with our attitude. And ultimately what happens is we start to make excuses. Right? I've got a lot of fires to fight. I've got all these accounts who've got problems. Operations people aren't delivering product on time. Our supply chain can't get it here on time. All of these excuses start to file in and compress that attitude. And that's probably a good marker of why many people get into a bit of an attitude rut, because their behavior isn't there.
Yeah. Yeah, which, kind of sparked another thought, because you have a term. I believe it's creative avoidance.
Yes, creative avoidance.
Would you mind kind of elaborating on
creative avoidance is just, doing something you're not supposed to be doing at the wrong time, right? Because there's something else you should be doing. For whatever reason, our mind just can't wrap ourselves, can't get it started, right? And we call that creative avoidance, right? There's always things that are easier to do. For example, prospecting, we might have a list of people that we have to call, and, you know what? Let me go ahead and, jump on LinkedIn and do a little bit of research, right? Next thing you know, we're in a rabbit hole of research on LinkedIn, and now it's 4:45 in the afternoon, and it's time to go home, right? Kind of felt good about it, but ultimately we didn't get done what we needed to get done.
And Sandler's got a ton of rules. What's your favorite?
Oh my God! Well, I might even let that one slip out. Right? Hard selling is good for one thing, and it's hard pushback. And what does that mean? Right? That's a great reminder that features and benefits don't differentiate you from the competition. Right? So features and benefits, if you're going to, we're the best at this. We have 10,000 years of experience, right? We're better, we're faster, we've documented it, all of that stuff. It's not compelling because anybody can walk through that door and have the same conversation with your customer or your prospect. So it's just not compelling. And so when we're talking, we're not selling. Our job is to really ask great questions.
Now, enter in AI. Right, and the ability now to chat GPT everything, right? And now we have to kind of fundamentally shift on how we bake that technology into our workflow, into our. Am I saying that right? Workflow?
Well, I think there is a into the flow of work, right? Oftentimes like technology becomes these sort of satellites where salespeople have options to use certain technology, but in the flow, right, there really isn't an option. It's part of the process, right?
And how are we going to engage that technology into our day-to-day activities? What we hear from a ton of salespeople now is nobody answers their phone.
No.
So now, do I leave a voicemail? Do I not leave a voicemail? What do I say in the voicemail? Do I follow up with email? So creating a systematized hunting process, right? That's not all time consuming, right? We need to be able to leverage our CRM, right? Be able to leverage AI and bake that into our flow of work.
So the technology piece is for an older guy like me is one that can be a tough conversation. As sometimes you've seen me struggle, but the reality of what I'm coming to learn here when it comes to technology and AI, what an enhancement to our lives. So far, that's my theory. The challenge has been with technology is that it comes so fast and it evolves so quickly. The question becomes, what do I adopt? When do I adopt it? How deep do I get into the adoption of these tools? And I think, Rob, you used a term earlier called being in the flow of work. And so I'm a big advocate of the AI tools sitting out there. But the reality is, anecdotally, I'll give you one way that technology is really changing and improving the landscape of sales producers. CRM. I think long pool, the epicenter of people's business sales engine is going to be CRM. So gone are the days of my people won't use CRM. They won't put all their information in it. Those are the people we need to either weed out or pray that they retire sometime soon, because that's not going to help us long pool. And so adoption of that CRM, eventually we're going to see AI inside of CRM, which we're already seeing. The pipelines, Rob, as you know, you've seen some of the pipelines. The pipelines are now predictive pipelines, and it's based on an aggregation of activity and quality of conversation that AI is reading inside of the deal activity. So we're starting to see this. And so in the flow of work, most organizations, right, if we're prospecting, we're looking for leads. Right? Leads are people that we can put into our CRM. We can cultivate leads. We can prospect into leads. We can push content into them, hoping that we get somebody to raise their hand. Once they raise their hand and want to have a business development conversation, now we can convert them to a deal in our pipeline. Now we start to think about that lineage of working with that lead or suspect and take them to a lead and into a deal. We're harvesting a lot of data. And the pipeline starts to become predictive because it's seeing and it's reading tons of data sitting in there. From that deal, right, we've got the Sandler philosophy. We've got deal hygiene that allows us to move deals from one spot to the next, close the sale, close the file type thing. The other thing that we're seeing that integrates well with the CRM is note takers. I'm pretty biased. I'm in love. I have a love affair with my note taker. It's called Fathom AI Note Taker. That note taker will literally do all the heavy lifting on calls. When's the last time you seen me take a note on a call?
Yeah, not.
And it allows me to fully, invest my mind into the conversation instead of writing, because I know my note taker's got my back. But the coolest thing about the note taker is it embeds itself right on the contact record inside of, HubSpot. We use HubSpot, but it embeds it right there, and within 24 hours, it shoots me it shoots me a summary right away, but within 24 hours, it shoots me a to-do list. Everything that I said I was going to do, it literally puts into my CRM, right on my task list, and automates it and shoves it right in front of me so I never, ever miss it. And I think that's the kind of cool stuff we can streamline. Now, I'm talking about 1, 2, maybe 3 pieces of technology, 4 if you include Outlook. So I think people really have to really be careful about how they're tech stacking. We like to follow shiny new objects sometimes, but invest, adopt, and create great habits off the technology that we have.
So we really appreciate you spending some time learning about Sandler, tactics, strategies, the way organizations are really engaging Sandler to impact their teams. If any of this resonated with you, you feel like this warrants a deeper conversation about your team, your organization, we would certainly welcome that.